Have you got a timer on it?
Yeah,
this guy's just going to go on for like 5 hours.
Mate, you spoke more than I did.
That's because I can't talk sense.
Alright, this will be the proper one now.
You should record all this bit. This will be funny.
This is getting recorded.
Yeah, this is
well.
funny.
Yeah. No one wants to see this bit.
They do, mate.
They do.
But honestly, this is
Honestly, they do.
these are people running your NHS. Are you ready now?
You said you wanted to talk about medical training.
No, we'll come on to that in a moment.
Oh, what? We're just promoting it.
You're going to hold my product. Welcome to another episode of The Antidote. For this episode, we're doing a little bit different this time. I'm joined by two old university friends who I've known for 15 years now. I've got Joe, who's a palliative specialty doctor, and I've got Kaz, who is a surgical specialty doctor. We all went to university together. We've all gone in our different directions, but the kind of challenges that we face in our day-to-day clinics in the NHS seems to be quite similar. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to just talk about a few ideas casually, a few experiences, and talk about this breakdown between patients and doctors and maybe misconceptions. So Kaz, is there any kind of scenario you could tell us about where a patient may have come with an idea which challenged your own or maybe challenged your ego as a doctor and how you handled that?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for inviting us onto this chat that we're having. And there's been loads of situations where I've had difficulties with patients or difference in opinions, and I spent most of the time trying to understand the patient and essentially adjust my management plan for this patient according to their patient's medical best interest and also personal best interest. So I had one scenario with a patient who had basically a hernia, which is a bulge. You can get them anywhere in your body, but this one was in particular in the groin, and he wanted it fixed because it was causing him pain.
Sure.
And the issue with this patient was that he had recently seen a program by Victoria Derbyshire, which essentially was suggesting that mesh hernia repairs lead to complications, and patients don't know enough about this.
And Victoria Derbyshire, she's a doctor, she's a consultant,
she's a TV presenter, from what I remember.
So some daytime BBC programme was talking about mesh.
Yeah, I mean, she obviously should have done her research as part of her role, and she wanted this to be discussed more openly in public, basically. And so he came in with this opinion that mesh repairs are problematic, and essentially I had to deal with that situation because the literature that we have says that actually mesh repairs are the best in terms of reducing the chance of the hernia coming back again, because you can repair them, but there is a chance of it coming back.
So did you feel that this patient came to you more educated because he'd now heard about the different pros and the different cons of doing the mesh, or he'd come to you with quite a skewed, biased opinion now?
Well, I think now patients do come in with a lot more information, which I think is a good thing, because I think it's important that patients are educated and have a better understanding, and they question doctors, which is great. And that also makes the physician, clinician think more about what they're saying and how they deal with the scenario. But obviously that also causes problems with a lot of misguided information, which is out there for everybody. And so our consultations have now changed a little bit in terms of the style, and we're actually trying to show that we have a better understanding, take on board the information that they come with, and try and navigate them and essentially come to an agreement, but one that we hope that is for the best interest clinically. But as a clinician, I don't want to give a treatment which is inferior.
Yeah, of course. You want to do the best.
I want to do the best for my patient.
And but you've got to respect.
Yeah, I've got to respect the patient. I have to respect their thoughts, but also, so far it's been 15 years since I've started medical school. I would hope that after 15 years, my knowledge and my experience is such that the treatments and the options I give to the patients are validated and not just off a 1 minute, 10-minute read off a newspaper.
And Joe, I suppose in your field, in palliative care, you don't just have to contend with the patient who unfortunately is going to die imminently, and you're trying to provide the best supportive care you can for that patient in their final days or weeks. You've also got to contend with all the other family members that may have read something or heard something which which might not necessarily be backed up by medical evidence.
Yeah, that's a big part of our job, is trying to understand or deal with different perceptions, and that could be some stuff in the media, it can be stuff from religious texts, it can be personal fixed held beliefs. So we work through loads of different scenarios to try and understand where they're coming from, and then how we kind of juxtapose that with what scientific evidence says, and also what our own personal experience as physicians says, and try and come to some sort of shared conclusion.
And do you feel that now you've gained experience over the years in this specialty, do you feel that people value your opinion as a doctor, or do you feel that is becoming more and more challenging to demonstrate your authority in the subject, and why people should listen to you because of your experience and what you've done?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think on the whole, if you can establish rapport with somebody, then they are more likely to trust you, and that's about doctor-patient dynamics. But I have noticed a slight trend in changing of how healthcare is viewed, basically. So it's quite it's almost like quite a consumer-based service at the moment. And when I was more junior and I worked in A&E, and all through my training, you do meet people who see it as, I'm coming for you to give me a service and you're just going to give me what I want. You probably see that in GP as well.
It's a shopping list.
It does feel like a shopping list sometimes.
Yeah.
And
I want this x-ray, I want this blood test.
Yeah.
And these investigations, they're not treatments.
No.
They're not going to make you better if you have them.
No. And those are really difficult consultations to manage, because you have to try and address that, and you have to try and kind of find a way of showcasing your knowledge and experience in order to try and get to the right plan that will fit that person. And that it can be a challenge, that, yeah.
I mean, recent cases, I suppose, which have come up in the media before, which is not in our specialties, but when they talk about children, for example, and linking it back to palliative care, and I suppose to surgical options as well, when the doctors turn around, the clinical team turn around and say, that's the best we can do, I'm really sorry, but this is the best we can do. And then a parent or a relative would have heard of some treatment in America or China. Do people come back to you with suggestions like that and say, well, I heard so-and-so could be done?
Yeah, fairly regularly. Yeah, fairly regular.
What do they accuse you of? Why don't you offer these treatments?
So the end of life is a particularly emotive topic anyway, because it's very hard to lose a loved one at any stage of life. So you always kind of want to cling on to this concept of hope, and sometimes that manifests as just keeping going with medical treatments, even though you know that there's not really any chance that they will make a difference. I think people find it hard to let go of that. So I've had people ask for second opinions, and they go to different countries, India, America. Oh, this drug, this doctor can save my loved one's life, and it's quite, that's really tough.
Would you encourage them? Do you encourage them to seek out this information, or do you dissuade them and say, look, these are people not telling you the whole story, and they're wasting your time and wasting your money?
So sometimes it is very obvious that there are people who are wasting people's time and money, and that can be quite clear cut, and I like to think I'd be confident in saying that. There's a big focus on autonomy in this country, so that it's the patient or the family's decision. So you try and embrace that as much as possible, and if they want to go and seek a second opinion, you say you're well within your rights to do it. But I would also try and foster a realistic expectation, and that comes from my experience and from scientific knowledge and years of training. And hopefully, if I can establish rapport, I would expect that to be acknowledged.
And Kaz, coming back to you were saying in the beginning that you understand how the dynamics are changing between patients and doctors, and giving the patients more information or correct information is where you see our healthcare going at the moment.
Well, there is a lot more information out there. There are, again, because of social media, people are going to seeing other treatments available in other countries, and it's a bit, healthcare is becoming a little bit like fashion. Oh, this this is what they're doing in America, or this is what they're doing out there, and why aren't we doing it here? And what they don't know is that actually some of these new products have only been out for a short period of time, and we don't really know how effective they actually are. Unfortunately, within the NHS, there are limits to what we can offer.
Why are there limits?
When we offer certain services within the NHS, we want it to be proven that it's effective for patients. It's also economically viable, and unfortunately, the NHS is it's not it's not a business. It's a completely different style. We have a certain budget, and we have to respect that budget. We can't just.
But when you say effectiveness, just to clarify with you, if there's something which is proven to work, and it's effective in the sense that there's 10 patients, I do the treatment for these 10 patients, they all get better. That's something the NHS would do. The kind of things that the NHS steers away from is I've got 10 patients and I gave them the same 10 treatments and only one benefited from it. It's not effective.
No.
I mean, turn it onto something, for example, that you might do in your own life. For example, you buy a car and you've been told by the car dealership that this car sometimes starts, sometimes doesn't start. And if somebody told you this car will only start 1 in 100 times, you couldn't depend on that car. Because when you need to go to work, pick up your kids from school, I need this car to be reliable. And I suppose that's when it comes to the budgeting in any healthcare system. They need to know some vehicle is going to work more times than not. And if it doesn't work more times than not, it's not worth the punt. Because this is thousands and thousands of pounds that you're spending on this.
And also there's, NHS, we're not treating just this one, we don't just have this one condition that we need to treat. There's thousands of conditions, and we have to think about all the thousands of conditions, not just this one particular condition. For the patient, I respect that that's their one main concern, but unfortunately that's not how we have to look at it more holistically, and that's how we decide where the money in the NHS is going to go.
And Joe, what are your thoughts about sharing information with patients, or patients having access to their information? Is that going to be a healthy option, or do you think it makes people neurotic and they'll be like looking up their records all the time, or questioning what doctors have written or what they've done?
I think greater transparency is a good thing, ultimately. If people have access to their information, I think it would be more efficient. I think it gives them control, it gives them autonomy, but you still have the decision making still comes back to the doctor-patient relationship. So it's about shared responsibility. So if patients have their information and free access to it, that comes with a responsibility to yourself and also to kind of the medical profession as a whole. And that's the one thing I would just be a little wary of.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've summarised it really nicely there. Is you can have access to the information, but there should have been an opportunity to at least explain that information so that when the patient does have access to it in the future, they can recall what that conversation was about and where they were signposted in their information as well. So I think you've got three different views there from our own clinical experience of managing patients that may have come with information which doesn't correlate with how we do our treatments, and a little bit about patient choice, and a little bit about the cost-effective nature that we have to be in our healthcare system. And I think ultimately you have to trust your clinicians, trust your healthcare system. We are always trying our best for you, and we all make mistakes, and we always apologise for those mistakes, and we always want to do better, not just for you, but for us as well. But at least you're seeing the face of some of our doctors here and our experiences. Thanks again for joining us on this episode. Make sure to like, share and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. See you later.
Thanks.
That's it. Let's get out of it. It's boiling.
Thank God.